Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of PodSafe Chocolate. My name is Clay Gordon. I'm your host, and today we're going to be talking about an interesting article that was published called When Virtue Tastes Like Cocoa. It was published by the current president of a group called the AVPA, which is the Agency for the Valorization of Agricultural Products. I would do it in French, but my French pronunciation is not perfect. Before we get into today's episodes, I want to remind everybody that this episode of PodSafe Chocolate is sponsored by the members of the Chocolate Life. If you're not this is the homepage. If you're not currently a member, you can click on the join button, and there are a bunch of different ways that you can support what we're doing. There's always been a free tier since 2008, and monthly support starts as little as $5 a month. But let's go and let's introduce one of my guests today, and this is Carolina Faure. Carolina, welcome to PodSafe Chocolate.
Hi, Clay. How are you doing?
We're doing quite well, thank you very much. And as often happens, we're doing this live, and we're not in control of the universe. One of our other guests, who is the author of the post, Philippe Juglar, has yet to join us. And so we're going to go and do what we do best, which is vamp until we're ready. But until then, no matter where you're connecting from in the world, you can go to the comments and let us know where you're connecting from. I'll get the shout out up on screen. And then I can also, if you have a question about what we're going to be talking about today, let's go and take a look at that. So Carolina, before I want to set the stage. So for every post, for every episode of PodSafe Chocolate, I create a post, and this is the post for today's episode. And if you scroll down, this is the article we're going to be talking about, When Virtue Tastes Like Cocoa. So, Carolina, let's talk about La Cooperativa. What is La Cooperativa, and where does your business, which I understand is based in Paris, how does it fit into the world of promoting chocolate which is made in a producing country at an origin?
All right. So I'll start by saying that I'm Colombian, that I am based in Paris, and I have been based in Paris for the past 25 years. My family, my parents still live in Colombia, and I have always worked in the fine foods sector. Most of my career has been exporting and working with artisans that manufacture products in Europe and exporting to different countries, usually the US or in Asia. A few years ago, I started noticing that while I was going to Colombia, that there are amazing products that were manufactured from A to Z in Colombia. And I started investigating, starting with chocolate, because I know that in Europe, there's a big consumption of chocolate, and I was very curious about the manufacturing of bean-to-bar chocolate, learning about where the different origins of cocoa comes from, and the origin of this movement. And so I started importing products, chocolate that is made in Colombia, after visiting a few manufacturers of bean-to-bar in Colombia and learning about their process, learning about where they were sourcing their beans, what the story behind their products were. And so I started noticing that inside Colombia, there's really a very diverse origin of different types of cacao, because we have a country that it's blessed with a geography that is very challenging for some. We have coast on both oceans. We have all the Andes mountains that cross diagonally, and they divide in 3 branches inside on Colombia. We have 40% of our territory that is the Amazon, and to the east we have the plains. So in all of these different places, there are production of cacao, different varieties and different terroirs. And in Europe, the notion of terroir is very, everyone speaks about terroir when they're talking about fine foods, especially when you talk about wine, when you talk about olive oil, and recently a lot in the specialty coffee industry. So I started tasting all these chocolates, and then I started bringing them to France. I worked very closely with the producers to understand which are the best, the most reliable origins, the stories behind, the traceability, how do they buy the cacao, how do they produce it, translate all the packaging. Obviously, the marketing, the packaging makes a very big difference when you're selling a product here. And my objective was to place these chocolates next to the chocolate bars that were produced in Europe. Not in a corner saying these are South American products or made in Colombia, but just next to each other at similar price points, because everybody imagines that making a chocolate in country is going to be less expensive than making it in Europe. But it's not the case. And there's also the logistics and other things to take into account. So
So if I can, I want to jump in here because I want to see about addressing the topic of the article, which says when virtue tastes like cocoa. And let me go, if I can, introduce the primary theme here, which is that I'm just going to read this for everybody who might be listening rather than watching. And what it says, there's something deliciously paradoxical, right? And in an ironic sense, of course, there's something deliciously paradoxical about the way some European chocolatiers talk about cocoa, always with warmth, yet rarely without condescension. They speak of meeting the producers, of highlighting the terroirs, and of course, the social impact of their chocolate bars. Their words smell of vanilla, but the rhetoric leaves a faint aftertaste of colonial paternalism. These new missionaries of chocolate set off, linen shirts and tender smiles at the ready, for Peru, Colombia, or Mexico, Colombia, Brazil, many, many countries in Latin America, countries they describe with the zeal of a fair trade brochure as Edens of cocoa beans waiting to be saved. There, among the pods, they pose for the camera, a well-meaning European surrounded by grateful farmers. The staging is impeccable, the moral prepackaged, everything amounts perfectly, except perhaps humility. So you're at that intersection, if I may, as somebody who is commercializing product. You're a Colombian by birth, you live in Europe, you see that there are some chocolate products made from beans from Colombia, right, in the European market. And what you're doing is you're focusing on products which are made from Colombian or cocoa beans that are grown in Colombia, right, and that are transformed into chocolate in Colombia. So can you talk about this fundamental paradox that Mr. Juglar is talking about, which is that Europeans still, when they even craft chocolate makers, even specialty chocolate makers, when they go in and think about cocoa, they're still talking about cocoa from a colonial perspective, even though France didn't own Colombia as a territory, Spain did. France did have territory where cacao grows. So can you speak about, from your personal experience, about the paradox that Mr. Juglar mentions in this article?
Yes, I think that it's all about education and really learning about the origin and where. I can only speak of Colombian cocoa, but it is my experience that there's a little bit of a surprise to find that there are we can, in Colombia, we can manufacture good quality chocolate that has the same rigor, the same seriousness, the same steps, that we even can have good cocoa, because most of the, like in coffee, most of the good cocoa is exported and very little stays in Colombia for the transformation or for Colombians to taste. So it is interesting to speak to other chocolate makers. There are some that, yes, that they have an image. They want to portray the fact that they have the know-how of how to make the chocolate, and it's just an origin, but the origin is less important than who makes the chocolate in the end. So there's for me, it's quite challenging to talk to buyers who are used to only buying products that are transformed here. They feel that they have more traceability, that they're more authentic because they are transformed in Europe. While if we really analyze the traceability and the directness of Colombian manufacturers, or the ones that transform the cacao, the chain is much shorter. Their commerce is much more direct than when you have a chocolate manufacturer that buys the beans and transforms their bar. Because even though there's a lot of traders that help these chocolate makers get their beans and the traceability, and because of the UDR legislation that has been trying to be put in place for the past 2 years, there's more transparency of all the different people that touch the beans before they get here. The project, or the Colombians, when they transform the cocoa, it's much more direct, because they buy directly from the farmer, or directly from an association, and they are delivered directly in Bogota. They transform the beans into chocolate, and then I buy it and import it into France. So the chain is much shorter than usual channels that are used for different producers. There's also a big difference between the type of chocolate that it's the craft chocolate that we're talking about, which are very small manufacturers. There's also very big companies who are not. I don't want to talk about those, because I don't really work with that type of companies. So it's a matter of education and openness about what the traceability, and how to recognize that it doesn't really matter where you are from. If you're in Europe or you're in Colombia, there is a knowledge and a savoir-faire of how to produce good chocolate regardless where you are. And in Colombia particularly, we are producers, and we're also developing all the knowledge and the savoir-faire of how to make good craft chocolate, but it has to still be discovered and acknowledged by peers in Europe.
So, I will not mention the big players in chocolate, but there is at least one industrial scale chocolate manufacturer who does distribute internationally. And in reality, everybody pretty much uses the same equipment, no matter where you are in the world. I mean, it's either universals or roll mills or ball mills or some combination of those three kinds of equipment. And the difference is the beans. And being able to express the potential flavor that the beans has. But we're talking about something which is a little bit different, if I can, which is a cultural chauvinism, which is a leftover of colonialism. We're fighting this attitude that we up here in the global north, right, or we up here in a first world country, or we up here in a developed nation, right, somehow are in a sort of a paternalistic framework to people who are in the global south, who are in third world countries, who are in developing nations. Right. And it is, I think that the heart of this article that Mr. Juglar wrote is attempting to be able to talk about that aspect of things. Excuse me. Even though what we're doing is specialty chocolate makers, is we're trying to respect what it is that the farmers are doing right? We nonetheless go, well, we know better than you do. And that's not good for anybody, I suppose, is the way to go think about that. I mean, because you have not spent most of your time in Colombia in the past 25 years, I'm guessing, most of your time in Paris, and that the specialty chocolate world, the bean to bar craft chocolate world, was only invented like 30 years ago, this year or next year, depending on what you're doing. Right? How do you see that play out, right, as a Colombian in Colombia? I mean, is there resentment? Do people say, well, how are we going to go and take our place on the world stage, right, by being able to showcase the knowledge, the expertise, the dedication to craft that maybe many Europeans, Americans perhaps, and others don't seem to acknowledge for some reason. I mean, do you understand that question? I mean, because I think that's at the heart of things.
Yes, I think I understand your point. The fact is that when you are a Colombian or somebody that comes from an underdeveloped country, it is like the challenge is to show the world that we can do the same things that another more developed country can do. And it's always been that story. So we grow up always thinking that we have to work harder than anybody else in any other country to show that we can do the same things. But it has come a time right now where because of communications, because of education, I think that in general, South America is going to reveal is going to like show the world that there's so many things that are happening in our countries, and it's kind of like our turn to shine. So I wouldn't be surprised then let's say in 5 years, we would have this conversation and there already be a turnaround and all the lights would be on South American produced products because of the diversity, because of how challenged we are in our own developed countries, that we're going to shine very in the near future, more than we have shined right now. There's more of, we are very prepared right now to contribute to the fine foods spectrum because we have learned, we have traveled. There's people that have are more specialized, and there's a special challenge that we all have as Colombians to want to show the world what we have in our country. So it is a challenge, but I am confident that little by little, people are going to start being more, especially here in Europe, especially here in France, where there's the glory of French gastronomy. And all the French products are exported all over the world, and all over the world, everybody values the French gastronomy. But little by little, Colombian gastronomy is also getting a lot of visibility. We have a lot of chefs that are here, and so it's changing. It's not everyone that has a block or has maybe it's an unconscious colonialism. Maybe it's unconscious, or I don't know, but I do feel there's a lot of people who do have this problem, and they think that they have to go and teach us how to do things, while it's not necessary. We can always learn.
Right. So if I can, a couple of things. First one of which is, right, let's put on our calendar getting together in 5 years and think about this. Because I think it's important, just for example, for people who follow me, on April the 10th, my episode of Pod Save Chocolate is going to be with Sean Askinosie, who is the founder of Askinosie Chocolate.
Yeah.
And April is the 20th anniversary of our going on Sean's first bean buying trips to Mexico and Venezuela. And part of the conversation is, number one, how his business has changed, but how the world has changed from sourcing and chocolate making and all those sorts of things. So I think there's I know there's enormous value, right, in having this historical perspective, going back and revisiting these ideas again. There's another point that I want to make, which is when we actually look back at sort of the history of craft chocolate bean to bar chocolate, especially through the international awards programs, what we do is we find that in the first 4 or 5 years of the Academy of Chocolate and the International Chocolate Awards, there is a particular Latin American producer, actually from Ecuador, Picari, which dominated the awards, right? It's just everywhere you looked, Picari was multiple golds in many, many different categories. So at the beginning of this movement, or at least the beginning of the international awards component of specialty chocolate, what we did find was this recognition of producers in consuming countries. And if we go to Peru, we'd find Cacao Suyo. If we go to Venezuela, we have 2020. If we go to, the Philippines, I can name at least one local producer. And so I am like intensely aware, because this is my 25th anniversary this year of working in the industry, so I do have that historical perspective. Before I jump to my next point, what I do want to remind everybody is you're watching Pod Save Chocolate, and you can go into the live comments, the live chat in YouTube, and let us know where in the world you're connecting from, or LinkedIn or Facebook if you've got a comment or a question about today's topic. As well as a question from Carolina. So just wanted to get people to engage, like, subscribe, do all the things, right? But I also want to point out that one of the things that Philippe mentions in the article is there is, number one, this sort of colonial chauvinism of people who come from the United States or Europe and go down to another country thinking, oh, I'm going to teach them about proper fermentation, right? Even though they've never seen a fermentation pile and have never taken a graduate level course in cacao fermentation. So there is that, but there's also a lack of understanding about the cultural connection, which is one of the earliest lessons I learned. And Caroline, I'm going to ask you to think about that, is like what I know about the cocoa economy and the chocolate economy in Peru doesn't work in the neighboring countries. It doesn't work in Bolivia, and it doesn't work in Ecuador. So what you think right, you can't rely on. And so part of what it is that I had to do was listen, right, and learn. For example, in Bolivia, the incentive to labor in the cacao economy, in the farming community in the Alto Beni, is leisure, not more money. People want more free time to enjoy themselves, and will work only as hard, right, as they can get them the money they need to survive, and then they'll stop working, right, essentially, right? Whereas here we are in Europe and in the United States, we think, well, if you could earn twice as much as you're currently, why wouldn't you work harder, right? And so that fundamental lack of understanding, of not putting yourself in the shoes and understanding what's going on. And I want to share this because, Carolina, I think you might like it. So I visited Colombia in 2022 and had the chance. I flew into Bogota. I'd been through Bogota airport many, many times, but had never left the airport before. So I'm in Bogota. We fly from Bogota to Valledupar, and then head up to the coast to Santa Marta, into the mountains to go to Minca, where we're looking at cocoa and coffee, and having a chance to work with the founders and owners of Good Sam Foods.
That's who you went with, yeah.
But getting a chance to go to a Arhuacos Indian reservation because we were invited in, and we could stay there, and then heading up into the hills and meeting the owner of this farm, the matriarca of the farm, Doña Elia. Then going into the countryside, and 2 hours on burro back, after spending hours driving into it through insanely beautiful country. I mean, just insanely beautiful country to go see what's going on. And then, going up to Minka, I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, I mean, just incredible. But being able to compare these experiences that I had with similar ones in Ecuador and in Peru and in Bolivia, I mean, Venezuela, where I was in 2006, I've been to Brazil a bunch of times, looking at the differences in culture and how they're representing things. I mean, in Colombia in particular, there, as we know here, there's been a lot of narco-terrorist related violence. And how does it impact the local communities? And, I don't know, here we are in a little town outside Necoclí, a little town called Caribia, which is on the near the Pacific. Actually, no, it's near the bight with it's Panama, as if I remember. So it's on the Caribbean Sea. But, finding a group of parents with small children, who are gathered together, this is something you don't normally see, or you wouldn't have seen 5 years ago in this area, where there was a lot of violence. And the way they express their optimism through just this insanely beautiful artwork, right, as the way they talk about things. I had one of my favorite experiences on this entire trip, and it may sound pretty crazy to most people, but we're up very early. We're heading north from, here is Philippe. We're heading north from, hey, Philippe.
How are you, Clay?
I'm good. Let me finish my story, and then we'll bring you on. It looks like your camera is off, but we can hear you. But we're heading north towards Santa Marta. We don't see you, but we can hear you. There we go. Not entirely sure what it is, but let me finish the story. But it's like 6 o'clock in the morning, and we're driving north, and we stop at a roadside stand. We've had a couple of cups of trucker coffee by that point. And you know what trucker coffee is, right? And we stop by the side of the road, and we get this amazing arepa con huevo. It's just, it's just like fresh, amazing stuff. And I think to some extent, that being open to those kinds of experiences is the beginning of the kind of humility that Philippe is talking about. Being open to those kinds of experiences is really, really important. All right, so Philippe has left off. So he'll come back in. Hopefully he can get his camera, and we'll go back to back to the art. We'll go back to the article. Yeah. So talk to us about that. Yay, he's back.
Okay.
No. Hey, Philippe, we're having problems with the camera. Let's not worry about it. Just leave that. We can hear you. But Carolina's going to respond to my question, and then what we're going to do is we're going to introduce you as the author of this article and go back to it. All right. So Carolina, please go ahead.
Yes, there's a few things in what you were talking about that are important to notice about Colombia. That is very different from the other countries. Geographically, we are very challenged. So we have from peaks of 6,000-meter mountains that cross the country, and that repeats on the frontier with Venezuela, the Sierra Nevada as well. So we have a lot of different mountains, and it's very steep descent. So Bogota, 2,600 meters from sea level, and in 1 hour you're at 1,600. It's already hot, and you change ecosystem, scenery, people, accent when people talk, how you eat, how you express, how you dress. So we have very diverse ecosystems, and it also relates to all the different cultures that you have and all the different expressions of this culture. So the cacao that is grown in the Amazons, for example, in the Putumayo, in the frontier with Peru and Ecuador, that cacao can hardly be exported because it is transported by little boats all over to get to Bogota, and it arrives in Bogota, and it's already, for example, it's still humid, so there's no export. If you don't roast it right away, you lose it. So that's why it is so important to have producers in the country to be able to not lose any of the cacao. Some of the cacao will never make it to export because it's just it takes too long for it to travel to all the points where it can be exported. So in the Amazons, you have very wild cacao, very wild communities that are going to plant the cacao, and they're very different from the ones that are in the Caribbean, that are in the frontier with Venezuela. And all of these areas that we plant cacao, which is mostly in the frontiers with other countries, but also we have some in the center of the country. But all of the ones that are in the frontiers are the ones that are more affected with the illegal illegal plantations. And we have to, as in Colombians, all these plantations, they have to deal with fighting to preserve their cultivations. And that is something that most people all over the world, they think that is finished. And it is not. It is really something that is very actual, that it happens still today. And moreover, because there's more plantation of cocaine happening in Colombia right now. So there has always been the fight of and the resilience of these cocoa plant. I don't know how you say that they have to defend their crops because they have to pay to protect them. Or last year when the cacao prices went really high, the neighbors were stealing their cacao, and so it has a much more challenging atmosphere than any other country to be able to keep on growing cacao. So that I really wanted to highlight, that is a very different scenery from other countries in South America. So geography, the internal conflict in Colombia, and then the third thing is the climate change. Because recently we have had regions that have had so much rain that the rivers have devoured it, and we have a lot of cacao plantations that have been inundated or flooded with all this water, and we'll have to wait to see what's going to be left of those plantations. So there's three things that make Colombia very different from other countries in South America.
So Philippe, welcome. Thank you for being able to join us today, and I'm sorry for the technical challenge that your camera is not working.
But I'm sorry for that, but happy to be with you.
Yeah, so what I want to do is go and talk about this article that you wrote and this whole notion of when virtue tastes like cocoa. So can you take us back? So this article was published in last November. Can you take us back and let us know what you were thinking about? What prompted, your writing this? I mean, you are the president of an organization called the AVPA, in English, the Agency for the Valorization of Agricultural Products. So your role is to promote products which are produced in the country where the agricultural ingredient is grown, whether it's tea, whether it's coffee, whether it's an oil, whether a nut oil or a seed oil. And chocolate is one of the competitions that you run. But tell me why this article and how cocoa is different from the other things. Well, why cocoa? How is it different from coffee? How is it different from tea? How is it different from oils?
Well, let's start with tea. Tea is obviously a product elaborated in Asia, and all the knowledge about tea is between China and Japan, to make things very short. So in Europe or in America, we are only mere drinkers of regular teas seen by the Chinese. The best teas are not for us. They know better tea than we do. And I must tell you that when we started our competition of tea, we were a bit shy. As a matter of fact, we have a lot to exchange, but we have a lot to exchange on an equal basis. We come to those competition with our art of degustation due to our wine experience mainly, and they come with their 2,000 years of tea, of experience of tea. And so they know how to speak of tea. They know how, we know how to speak of aromas, qualities, and so on. And we have very interesting basis of exchange with the best Chinese or Japanese tea degustator, tea taster. Now you go to coffee. Coffee is obviously, globally speaking, a colonial plant. There is no long centuries experience in Latin America or in Western Africa or in Asia with coffee. Coffee was brought by the European, a lot of French, to Latin America or to Western Africa or to Asia. The only country in the world with a real, as a Korean country, a real experience to have a culture in coffee is Ethiopia. But well, let's so in the case of coffee, obviously the European or the Occidental guy has quite a colonial way of looking at the market. We think that we know better than the local persons, and frankly speaking, we had to wait up to years, let's say 2000, to see the beginning of the interest for quality of coffee, globally speaking, in growing countries. With the exception of two countries, Brazil and Colombia, because Brazil is a drinking country, they drink their coffee. The first market of Brazilian coffee is Brazil. And in Colombia, because they organize a fantastic organization, the Federación of Cafeteros, which decided to learn and to know about coffee and have a very good experience about coffee. But otherwise, globally, coffee espresso is something developed mainly in Southern Europe. I would say in the case of coffee, a very funny thing is that Australians, New Zealanders invented the concept of specialty coffee. And they went to Europe learning to us what is an espresso coffee. And you can imagine that in Italy or even in France or in Spain, to see those young, fair Anglo-Saxons coming to learn us what is an espresso coffee was a bit funny, but that's another point.
So Philippe, let me jump in here and see if I can put a little context around this. So when we think about tea, for example, right, it's all tea, no matter whether it's green tea or black tea or whatever, comes from a single plant, Camellia sinensis, right? And if you want to produce a tea for drinking, all of the processing needs to happen right near where the tea plants grow, right? If you don't process it there,
you cannot transport green leaves.
Yes, right. So let's take that concept, for example, into oils. So if we're talking about extremely high quality oils, which retain elements of terroir, the taste of place, just to be a real shorthand, right? If I've got a particular nut that grows in a particular area of France, I want to press it locally. If I ship it to another part of the world, it is a chance for it to go rancid, and whatever it is that I'm producing 1,000 miles away, 5,000 miles away, right? 2,000 kilometers, 8,000 kilometers away is going to be different from if I produce it locally. And there might be elements associated with a geographic indicator or a protected designation of origin that says you have to use this nut, you have to transform it this way. And there is not just the nut, but there's the process, which is a part of what makes it special. I would imagine that a lot of the coffee that is drunk in the world is not roasted in the producing country.
The majority of it is not.
There is not. However, there are discussions either way. How long? When does the coffee start to degrade if you roast it? How long? If it's whole bean or if it's ground, there are issues related to that. But there is a traditional, and this is, I think, the point you're making, this traditional aspect where coffee from the beginning was exported. It was a colonial product. It was exported into the colonizing countries. And the same thing is generally true of cocoa. When we think about the modern day chocolate, what we think of as chocolate today was invented in Europe and the United States.
And that's the big mistake. In the case of coffee, globally, we learned in Europe how to drink coffee, and we teach to growing countries how to use their own coffee. But in the case of cocoa, in Mexico or in Peru or in Ecuador, they knew to drink chocolate before us. And the point I want to stress is a very cultural point. Who is legitimate to speak of? Do you see what I mean? Depending the point of view you take, why the Parisian chocolate manufacturer of chocolate is more legitimate to speak of quality than a Colombian chocolatero.
Mm-hmm.
So, Carolina,
sense,
if I can, Carolina, can you speak to that? I mean, so that particular point, because you're bridging both cultures, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you are French, right, in where you live, but Colombian by birth. Can you speak about that sense that do they truly feel that they are the only ones who are legitimate to talk about quality? Or
yeah, I would like to I would not take it from the perspective of comparing a Colombian manufacturer to a French manufacturer, but my experience is more, how do I sell to a buyer who usually only buys product that is made in Europe because they consider it the best? So when I came with my Colombian made chocolate, and my ambition is to sell it in the best show, like the most emblematic European stores, where they can be sitting next to each other with all the European manufacturers and have the Colombian made chocolate at the same level. So at the beginning, I would just show up with my chocolate and say, "Oh, this is Colombian chocolate," and people would look at me like, "Oh, so what?" We don't know this chocolate. We don't know this manufacturer. We have no idea how this is made. We don't get it. And so little by little, I started to think, okay, how do I make this legitimate, as Philippe was saying, or how do I make sure that somebody that gives it the credibility or the legitimate, to make it as the same level. So I participated in a contest with, among other chocolate producers that were from different manufacturing countries in Europe. And we got a little seal because we got a bronze medal. So that gave it kind of like okay, there's a seal that says that this is as good as all the others, or is ranked number 3 among the competitors. And so that gave it already some visibility, some recognition, and that allowed me to go into some stores where people thought that by tasting it, by the look of it, that it could perform well in their stores. And so it is true that there's a lot of labor of education. It is people need to feel reassured. Like, I come in here with a chocolate. They haven't seen me on this side. They don't know me at all because I have not been in this side of the business, but on the other side of the business. So I'm starting to network with people telling the story. Well, this chocolate is made from unique origin from the Amazons. This one is made from unique origin from Arauca, from Córdoba, from Huila, that are very distinct origins in Colombia. And in the same country you can find, and people did not, well, the people that they don't know that. And so they started to get interested, and little by little, there's more stores and more stores that are buying this product because they want to showcase a product that is original, that is very high quality, that is really attractive, and that it tells a completely different story. So I think that there's a lot of more interest today, particularly in young generations, about learning the origins and the uniqueness of flavors that come from the origins, or how they are transformed at origin.
So, Philippe, before you joined the conversation, I did have this observation with Carolina that, I have experienced over the course of my 20 some odd years of working in chocolate and cocoa, that a small startup craft chocolate maker who'd never visited a cocoa farm before, right, and who had never taken any training on fermentation was somehow able to go to a farm in some other country and teach the farmer how to ferment properly. And I think that's that sort of chauvinism, right, which is what is central to the article that you're talking about. Do you see any real obvious change that this chauvinism is becoming more prevalent, right? There's more of it, or there's less of it now as more people get involved in transforming cocoa beans into chocolate?
It's slowly changing. First, with the impact of real industrialization, you have now in many Latin America and Asia factories to roast coffee or to manufacture chocolate, which are very important, and they are able to export. Unfortunately, they mainly export lower qualities, not the best one, because they sell to to supermarket chains in Europe, and it's not the best chocolate or coffee who are coming from Colombia or from Mexico to France, for instance. But slowly it's changing, hopefully. It's changing because people are, trying to find their own way. I want to give you an example which struck me years ago. It was with olive oil. The olive oil culture in Europe has been made by the Italians, globally speaking. And the taste of the Italians, if you can speak of the taste of the Italians, because you have different regions in Italy, and you don't drink the same olive oil in Sicily or in the
could only come from the mouth.
Anyway.
Could only come from the mouth of a Frenchman. I'm sorry.
And for Italian, globally speaking, an olive oil which tastes black olive is bad. Mm-hmm. But in Northern Africa, in the south of France, in Serbia, they are used to what they call traditional olive oil. Mm-hmm. And during years and years and years, you had consultants from Northern Europe coming mainly to Algeria, or to Tunisia, or to Morocco, trying to explain your olive oil is bad, but on the name of what? Yeah, it's bad for Italian. That's right, but for a Moroccan, it's very good, and he's ready to pay for that.
I have to admit that, and this is just because of my training and my approach when it comes to chocolate, is I need to be an equal opportunity chocolate taster. I need to give every chocolate that's placed in front of me the opportunity to stand alone on its own merits, right? So if I'm judging it, I try to be I try to adopt that attitude. But at the same time, I have preferences, right? And I need to be upfront about what I prefer, and so that people can know if I rate a particular way, they can understand where my biases come in to this. I mean, this is a great example. It's not something that I would buy for myself, for example, is one way to think about that. But let's step back again, because I think I want to help people understand a little bit more. So this is this article. I mean, this is the post on the Chocolate Life right now for this episode. And so I've linked to this post. So anybody can go read to it, and they can come back to the Chocolate Life. If you're a member, you can comment on it. But let's talk about, if we can, the contests, because I think they're also very, very important. Because this is the link to this page is in the post. Let's talk about the chocolate contest because the deadline for entering into this competition is April 30th.
Very soon,
And so, right, so you can come to this page. There's a registration form. You can click a QR code, the rules, and all that sort of stuff. And then we have the results from 2025. But please, if you can, tell people they have to be in Paris before April 30th. Please tell people what it is that you're trying to do with this competition, and specifically how you think you're overcoming this chauvinism, right? That people have.
We avoid it. We don't overcome it. Our competition is only for chocolate elaborated in the country of origin. We did not want to put in the same competition chocolate elaborated in Europe and chocolates elaborated in the countries of origin. So it's a competition of chocolate elaborated in country of origin. What the first shock for our jury is mainly with a professional for chocolate, obviously. And the first shock for them is to have in front of them very beautiful and very fine chocolates. How is it possible? We are still in that stage, you know. How is it possible that Colombian chocolateros or Indonesian one bring us to Paris those beautiful chocolates? It's hard for them to accept it. That's the first step. Now, we have several years of experience, so we have some very experienced member of the jury, and they are waiting for new chocolates, and every year we have better chocolate, because one of the points, and that's the main reason why we insist on elaborating chocolate in the country of origin, not to with the hope that a lot of local or Colombian or Venezuelan manufacturer of chocolate will send their chocolate to Europe, but because when the chocolate or the coffee or the wine is elaborate, we buy or alongside the grower, you get fantastic results. When the cocoa growers have the opportunity to taste their own crop, you change completely the relationship between the buyer and the seller. In normal trade, cocoa trade or coffee trade, you have a professional buyer who comes to Colombia, to Venezuela, to Peru with very physical parameters. The way you speak of the finished product, you speak of taste, you speak of patience, and you can have an exchange with the grower completely different, and he will look at his field on a very different basis when he has in his mouth the taste of what he's growing. Do you understand what I mean?
No, absolutely. But because we're coming towards the end of the episode, what I want to do is a couple of things. Number one is I'm displaying right now. Here is the list of winners from the 2025 competition. You can go to the AVP. I'm sorry, Carolina?
No, I just said it's all Peru.
Yes.
Well, this is the first page. This is the first page.
But we have a lot of Peru, Carolina. You are right.
Madagascar.
Because they are very well organized.
So this actually does talk a little bit about competitions in general, which is number one, if you have a national organization, for example, like Prom Peru.
Peru, right? Yeah.
Prom Peru is going to be very good at organizing people to get their products into
Carolina, unfortunately, you know that in Colombia, Pro Colombia don't do the same as from Peru.
And I would also say that the Mexican government advanced Pro Mexico, Pro Mexico. That we do have, Pro Ecuador is doing some of its own things. They did an innovation award in this year. But I just want to let everyone know, if you're working in a country where cocoa is produced and you're elaborating a finished product in the country, then you are eligible to be able to submit your product into this competition. There is one thing that is unique. There is no entry fee per se, but to enter, you must join AVPA. So you must pay the membership fee in order to be able to enter the competition. So I just want to say that whether you enter 1 or 12, I don't think it really matters as long as you pay the membership fee into AVPA. Another thing which is interesting about the competition is that there's two separate juries. There's a technical jury, and then there's a taste jury. And so the products are evaluated in two entirely different methods. Number one, is it well made? That's the technical jury. And then number two is, what does it taste like? Which is the taste jury, which is, I think, a really, really fabulous way to go about and organize a competition. Now, Carolina, is any of the companies on this list one that you carry?
Yes, but I don't know if it's going to be showing there, but yes, I submitted 2 chocolates last year, and they both got a mention. Yeah, that's my site. And so
yeah, I wanted to talk about Tibito or Tibito.
Yeah, Tibito, yeah.
Which is a brand that I know. I don't recognize many of these other brands. I also think it's wonderful that I have this mashup of French and Spanish in the same sentence. Yeah. I'm so interested to somebody speaking rapid fire Spanish and then all of a sudden coming into an American English word, and it's like, where did that come from? I just think it's fabulous. So again, how does an award like the one that AVPA is producing help you, right? As someone who's trying to do this education to the consumer? Because this is really, if you don't know about these competitions and you don't enter them, you can't take advantage of the group of people who surround them who can help you grow your business, which is, we want to take this chocolate, which is produced in a producing country, which is like absolutely fabulous, right? And what we want to do is we want to expose the world to it. So
there's 2 things. There's one thing is the community of craft chocolate makers at Origin. It's really great to be able to be part, to learn from all the people that are making chocolate, the challenges, see what everyone is making. So that is really a great opportunity that it doesn't really happen very often, where you can have access to all of the different types of producers. And then once you have the seal, then it gives a credit or an acknowledgement from a Paris Gourmet entity that can be sold, for example, when people buy in Colombia and they have the seal that says AVPA Paris Gourmet, well, then they understand that this product has participated in this contest and that has gotten recognition. So it does help the participants or who get this acknowledgement, and they put it in their packaging for improving their sales and having more reach. Definitely.
Is this your product photography, or are they sending it to you?
It's a mix. It's a mix of everything.
Okay,
yes.
because the website, like, it's beautifully presented. I just wanted to say it is beautifully presented.
It's a mix. A mix of different media. So when you see that the packaging, it says in Spanish, it's from Tibito. I'm from Fruto de Cacao. And if it's in French, it's products, it's pictures that I've had photographers, mostly in Colombia, because I try to do everything in Colombia because I want to employ people from Colombia. So
this is another aspect of things, but I was just blown away when I visited Colombia. So just at the the professionalism, the creativity, just the ability to not just think outside the box, but throw boxes away, right? And do some just really, I think it's really important to throw boxes away rather than try to think outside them, because it's this, and this is where I think, Philippe, I want to end with, it is the unconscious assumption, right? It is, what we know or what we think we know that we never examine, right? That gets in the way of truly learning. if I think of myself as a colonizer, I'm from America, I'm from Europe, and I go to a producing country, and I have this idea that, oh, I'm from the global north, or I'm from a developed nation, and you're from the global south, or you're a developing nation. I have this automatic superiority, right? You have to learn to question that. You have to get outside that and change your mind, right? In order to be able to truly understand what the potential is for, not the potential, it's just not recognizing that the people that you're working with, right, have perhaps lifetimes of experience. It's not just them, it's their father, it's their grandparents, their great-grandparents who have experience, right, in transforming cocoa into finished products. And it may be a little bit different from what you're used to, but just because it's different doesn't make it
better.
Bad, which is a really, really important thing. So Philippe, take us back again to what's going on in this article. And I'm going to come back to the article and share it with people. What is, if there's 1 point or 2 points that you really want people to take away from this article, When Virtue Tastes Like Cocoa, what is it that you want them to leave this?
Exactly what you have just said, Clay. I want people to come with a very wide open mind. The guy in front of you is not inferior, he is not waiting for you. We have to cooperate. We are longing for a better chocolate, globally speaking, and he has to bring his experience, his culture. I am very, very, as you have listened to, I am very keen on the cultural aspects. We have to respect the culture of the other. I'm very proud as a Frenchman of my own culture, but I want to share and to understand the culture of my Colombian friend, because I know it and I respect it. So it's a question. Yes.
No, please finish. Please finish.
No, it's a question of a global position in the world. We are in a conflicted world. Mankind is a different.
We are in a conflicted world right now. Very, very much.
Right. So, please.
Right, and there has been, perhaps growing in the last 20 years, mistrust of the stranger. And we look at things which, as an American, I realize that only about 50% of Americans own passports. And many Americans, when they travel overseas, they're looking for food that reminds them of home, right? They're not actually looking to engage in all of these experiences. And I don't know if that's true of other countries as well. But I think that, if you're in Europe, I mean, it's like being able to go from France into Belgium, or France into Spain, or France into Portugal, or to Germany. There is this understanding, or perhaps appreciation for other cultures, I
would say the acceptation.
The what?
The first step is to accept.
Okay.
To recognize the difference.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So yeah. Absolutely, I am complete and total agreement, and that's why this article struck me, because it does talk about what happens when you approach a foreign culture with some humility, and understand that just because it's not familiar to you doesn't mean that there's nothing you can learn from it. And so, Carolina, I'm going to give you, some of the last bits of here, because I think it's interesting, because you bridge these two cultures. I mean, you're trilingual, number one, so English, French, and Spanish, right? I don't know how much time you've spent in the UK or the United States, but you have this understanding as a Parisian, from Colombia. I mean, I would love to go back and visit Medellin, depending upon where you are in the country, to be able to go back up into the hills in the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta, to go back to Minca and have a chance to just engage a little bit more had an afternoon. You can't get to know someplace, right? If you're, number one, being guided around to specific places, and you don't have the time to really settle in, right? And I don't necessarily know that, seeing Bogota, Santa Marta, Necoclí, right, and Valle de Par, right, gives me enough of a panoramic view of Colombia to really understand. But I'm gonna give you the last instance here, is this person with a foot in Colombia and a foot in France, right, who sees both of these worlds, to talk about the importance of this cultural respect, or at least humility, when you go and you expose yourself to new food, particularly.
Well, I think the principle between French and Colombian gastronomy or culture, it's very similar, because in both cultures, food is really, really important. Taste, the rituals that you have around food, it's very different. In both places, I remember when I came here at the beginning, I started noticing, like, for example, I would tell my friends, whoa, but I didn't know that there was this product here. This product is Colombian, but in fact, it's made by a multinational that puts it everywhere. But in my little mind, I thought that it was just Colombian and that it was placed here, right? I'm like, oh, this product also exists here, but that's Colombian. So I think that we are all, there's so much big companies that have kind of give us a mild palate, that when we have the opportunity to taste a flavor that is unique, that is grown in a country that has a terroir, that has a different ecosystem, and that is cultivated until it's mature, and that it's taken from this mature like that, and then it's prepared into a sauce, or is freeze dried, or is prepared at the origin, is obviously going to have a different taste. But not only that, but the way that you're going to eat it and you're going to mix it with something else is just going to make a perfect bite that is going to be an explosion of that country and that unique moment. So both countries have that. Like, for example, just a simple thing. You were mentioning how in Colombia we drink hot chocolate more
With
than,
cheese.
yeah, with cheese or with salty things. We would never drink a hot chocolate with a brownie or with a pastry, which is what French do, right? So I have a video that I published where and it's I'm not very, like, in Instagram, I try to get a lot of impressions on how you consume products, how you associate different flavors. And there's a video that I made where there's a hot chocolate and you're having the cheese coming out of it like that. And people really commented. And that's the only video that I had like more than 10,000 views, because people are like, what? Hot chocolate with cheese? Well, tasted. And it's
with
just
the right cheese. With the right cheese.
Well, not. And then it's just the association and being curious to try other things and to acknowledge that maybe the product, that flower or that fruit or that root that is endemic of that country is going to taste different if it's transformed there than if we bring it over here, transform it here, and we make it to our sauce here, to a different culture. So that's just what I think that is great from both cultures.
Right. So, Philippe, I'm going to jump in and I'm going to give you one last word, but I do want to amplify one of the things that Carolina said. If you are interested in becoming a critic of chocolate, a judge of chocolate, right, there are a couple of things that in my experience, I would suggest you do. Number one is you need to be Catholic in your taste, and Catholic in the sense of universal, right? If presented with an opportunity to taste something, right, you should take an opportunity, because if you've never tasted it, you can't find that taste in chocolate, right? You need to have a flavor referent in order to be able to do it. So you need to go through and taste everything that you want, everything that is presented in front of you. And it is that openness right? Which is going to lead you to be able to make discoveries, as Carolina said. You go, oh, you thought you knew what tamarind tastes like, but if you've never had fresh tamarind, or you think you've had jabuticaba jelly, but you've never actually had fresh jabuticaba, right? You don't really understand what it is that's going on, and you need to, and that goes to chocolate, right? You need, if somebody presents you with chocolate, irrespective of where it's made, whether it's got milk in it, anything, other things, none of it, taste it.
Taste it.
You need to taste it before you pass judgment on it. Oh, I don't like this chocolate. How do you know? You've never tasted it before, right? So I think it's really important.
I don't like milk chocolate, or I don't like. Well, if you're a judge, you have to like.
If you're a judge, you need to be an equal opportunity taster, right?
And the problem is not only to say I like or I don't like.
Right.
It is to know how interesting is that product. It's another point.
So yeah, very, very much. And with that, I want to say thank you to you both, right? I know that I'm going to have you both back on in the future, but I want to remind everybody that this episode of Pod Save Chocolate is sponsored by the members of the Chocolate Life. This is the homepage right now. Here is the link to the post for today's episode. And if you're not a supporter of the Chocolate Life, you can click on the join button and you can become a supporter, whether it's for free. As a member since 2008, there's always been a free membership level, or monthly beginning at as little as $5 a month. If you're a chocolate maker in a producing country, a cocoa producing country, or a tea or an oil or a coffee producing country, consider joining the AVPA and submitting your products for consideration in a future competition. Keeping in mind that the entry for the chocolate competition is the end of April. Your entries must be there by the end of April 30th. And that, I want to say thank you very much for being here today, both of you. It was a pleasure, and I appreciate
thank you, Dave.
all of that.
Thank you very much, Dave.
And Philippe, even though the technical challenges, we were able to hear you, even if not to see your smiling face, which is always a pleasure. And until the next time, everybody, I want to remind you, if you're working with chocolate and you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. Ciao, everyone. Ciao, everyone.
Goodbye.
We'll see you soon. Bye.